Look around the US and you will see a different picture everywhere you turn. Some cities are booming, others are collapsing. Some sectors of the economy are doing fairly well, others are completely destroyed. Many have been fleeing their state in search of better fortune, in hopes of reducing the burden of their state by abandoning it. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. These are the worst states to live in. That's the topic of today's video. Now, this is not my opinion. This is some information from polls that were done. But I want to hear your opinion for those people living in these particular regions and what you feel. I've done videos similar to this in the past, and it gave me such a good perspective because how people were sharing information and we were able to piece that together. If you've been a subscriber here for a while, I know you've seen this, and the information that people give, the grassroots movement, the information that is collected right from individuals in those particular situations is more valuable than anything that we can get from any sort of textbooks and mainstream media and everything else. What we are doing here is quite remarkable. So I really thank each and every one of you. Let's get into the map first. The percent of population who describes their state as, quote, the worst possible state to live in. And you will see that the darker the color, the more of a percentage feel this way. And look what's at the top of the list. Lo and behold, Illinois. Now, I should mention that while Illinois is there at the top, it's certainly not the only one. And something I've talked about before is that as a result, you see a mass exodus that is occurring to the nearby states. And it's not telling us that what we're experiencing here is unique to Illinois. This will happen anywhere. If people feel the burden, they are going to leave. And that's just a matter of fact. There's only so far they can be pushed. Now, there are different reasons for this. It may be because crime is too high. It may be because taxation is too much of a burden. And there may be other issues that people are simply looking for work elsewhere. Maybe they are dealing with other issues that cannot be necessarily quantified in statistics. But when you see a significant percentage of people, and then you hear their opinions which match those statistics, you start to get a really big picture forming. Okay, so let's get into the article here. Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Illinois are the worst possible states to live in, but Louisiana and Mississippi aren't much better. 21 to 25% of residents were unhappy with these states. Among the happiest were those in Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and Texas. All right, so that's part of the article here. I want to cover some of the information. I took all the charts basically and thought these would be interesting to you. According to these polls, the worst possible U.S. states to live in are Illinois, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Many people have been telling me the situation that they've been experiencing in Illinois in particular. The economic situation is not good. There's a lot of crime from what I understand. And when you look at a city like Chicago, you will know what's going on. Of course, you can't just say the entire state is bad as a whole. There are pockets in any state. But it seems like there's a large percentage of people in Illinois right now that are feeling the burn. On the right-hand side, where the most satisfied live: Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Texas, North Dakota, and more. Look at this. How would you describe the state that you live in? So the font might be a little small. I'll just cover this for 1 second here. Best or one of the best possible states to live in. That's the first column. best possible state to live in and the worst possible state to live in. So according to this, Montana seems to be here at the top. And it's just interesting to see some of these areas. Maybe you live there, maybe you're just interested for your own good. I'll leave that with you. It just seems to me like there are many people experiencing hardship in certain areas. Other places, they're happy as happy can be. And we make generalizations about the economy. Oh, the US economy is doing well. The US economy is not doing well. The unemployment rate is this. The unemployment rate is that. But there are so many little pockets that have formed around the US itself. Now, of course, if we're making statements, you can't go back and retrace your steps and comment here, comment there. I mean, we have to somehow make generalizations during our speaking, of course. But we can see that there are fewer and fewer places that are finding themselves to be prosperous and to be generally good in a sense that many people are happy with. That's what I'm finding. Socioeconomic indicators would clearly be relevant, including work-life balance, healthcare, crime levels, education, housing, income, and the environment. 25% of the people in the Gallup survey ranked these 3 states as the worst. Louisiana, Mississippi also feature prominently, with 17 to 20% describing the 2 southern states as the worst. So that's some interesting information that I believe is relevant based on this. I mean, you're not just looking at one particular thing, someone's opinion necessarily, but it goes with more information. And we need to base our decisions not just on one thing. For example, if you became unemployed and you were living in a particular state, does that mean that that state has really high unemployment and there are no jobs and the situation is terrible? No, that might have been just specific to you. So think about it that way, that there's always many levels to this. But ultimately, you know, if you took a poll of 100 people, you might get one opinion. But if you start to expand that, thousands and thousands and thousands of people, you start to really paint a bigger picture here. America's top 25 happiest cities. Now, I'm noticing Colorado coming up on here several times. Boulder, Colorado. You could see here another Colorado, and others here. Also urban Honolulu, which I thought was interesting here. You got a few cities in California as well. Anyway, just wanted to make note of these. But again, we can't make these generalizations and just say these are the worst cities to live in. I'm sure many people would say where they live is the worst. But ultimately, we are all heavily burdened by taxation. And it is quite unfortunate to see the situation gets worse. So we see the people, they're living on the streets, they are in a state of poverty, maybe they can't make ends meet financially, they have to take on 2 and 3 jobs if they can get them, they are going to these payday loan cash advance type places, and there more are springing up around the city. And these are the situations that I am seeing consistently coming up. And that is not a good sign. We need to be able to turn that around. There are places around the world that don't have certain taxes, considered to be tax havens, right? Look at one example. Cayman Islands, okay? Cayman Islands, there is no property tax. There is no capital gains. There are no sort of income taxes and everything else. That's why a lot of money has fled there. Now, a lot of people just can't buy a property or move to that place. I understand. I'm just trying to say that there are economies out there that are doing fairly well and they don't have all the taxes. Okay, they may not have all these facilities and different things, but I'm just trying to show you that you don't need all of these taxes. Taxes aren't going to fix the problem. Remember, before 1913, the US didn't have these taxes. There are always new taxes that become introduced over the years. and they just say it's temporary. It's temporary. I promise. We're just going to implement this tax. You just pay this a small fee now, and you will not have to pay it in a few years from now. Okay, we're just going to pay a little bit of tax. That's all. That's all you're going to see. And then 5 years later, they say, well, you know, there's a little bit more of a problem. We're just, you know, a few more years and a little bit more of that percentage. And it goes on and on and on. Soon, a generation has passed, and those people are already paying into that system. They don't even know what's going on. New generation, all of a sudden, nobody knows any different. If you could just push it off into the next generation, you can get anything to be accepted. That's what they've done. So I'm not a fan of taxation, if you haven't figured that out as it is. At the very least, we shouldn't be taxed on our income and shouldn't be taxed on our property. If you want consumption-based taxes, we can argue that. You could say, you go to the store. I mean, it's hard to avoid taxes to begin with. You go to the restaurant, you get taxed. You go to the grocery store, you're buying things off the shelf, you pay taxes. You go to one place or another, you're paying taxes. You pay taxes on your gas. You pay taxes on your, carbon taxes on this and that. You buy a computer, you're paying an extra tax on that. I mean, there's taxes everywhere, right? So these taxes go somewhere, right? And what's happening to all of that money? Well, it's called a black hole. You can research that. It's a very interesting phenomenon where you put the money in and then it disappears. They get an extra $1 billion. Put it in, it's gone. It's just magic. It's amazing the way it works. A government is very, very skilled at their illusions and their magic tricks. We're always looking at David Copperfield and David Blaine and all these other illusionists, and they make us see things and make them disappear. Well, nobody is better at this than governments, because they have made trillions and trillions of dollars in taxes simply disappear. The infrastructure is weakening. The economy is not doing well as a whole, but you look around there and you see there are some buildings that are doing well and certain individuals are profiting from. That's the way this works. If there's somebody who's going to make a profit off of it, there'll be a beautiful piece of infrastructure there. But if it's for the public, well, then it's degraded, potholes on the city streets, their water mains are flooded, and everything just goes to all hell. That's the way I see it. That's my opinion. But you tell me, if you live in one of these cities, in one of these states, I want to know what you think. It's very, very important that we gather our information together, because we're not going to hear the truth from any of these polls. We're not going to hear the truth from the mainstream media. We need to pool our information together, and I'm so grateful to have so many people on here that share their experiences and what they are dealing with. That's the way we're going to get further and further along here, and I'm thankful for that. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you'll find my books, The Money GPS and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through these books at Amazon. Links are in the description below. Take care.